is the time of avaricious men, lost in their lust for power, baby. Here they come again. They wave the flag.
Well, hi there, everybody.
Distract us from the truth.
We're here for another Tuesday night show. And I decided to kind of free up my song about It Is the Time of avaricious men lost in their lust power, baby. Here they come again. Because that's the world we're in. And that's the time we're in now, even some 20 years ago, whatever it was, maybe more. But, you know, if those of you who are creative types out there, songwriters or what have you, singers, artists, painters, writers, you know that you get ideas for your music, you get ideas for your poetry, for your prose, that kind of peeks ahead of the future. It's not necessarily at all a matter of a deliberate contemplation of the law of cause and effect, but rather the inspiration that artistic and creative people, you know, are familiar with, or we trust that kind of inner voice, the inspiration. And tonight we'll have a guest. We're going to discuss a number of things with Derek Lee. Will be here in a little while. And we're going to delve into things that are, as an overriding theme, have many aspects and facets that are very relevant to life today and what's coming and life tomorrow and how we got here and how to survive and surf these coming times to some degree, for sure, hopefully. So we take a little time out of the day to do a creative project. Here's a show or a presence, an opportunity to speak out to the world. But, you know, for my part, I've got tons of films and videos and stuff out there and blog regularly. And I really do like to get the voices of other people who are thinking and reasoning and navigating these times and these waters as well. And a lot of that has to do with how many, many people there are in the world who become immobilized, if you will, who become, transfixed by events like the proverbial deers in the headlights. They may become, again, apathetic, immobilized, overwhelmed with helplessness, or they're ruled by impulsiveness, actions, so that they will do anything to assuage the feelings that these things, apathy, helplessness, etc., and to feel like doing something is better than doing nothing, which in some cases it is. But it's helpful to have some kind of well-reasoned and considered options for action in life, for thinking. So it's time to start thinking again. A lot of people I've experienced in my life in the past, people who criticized me for thinking. Not that I wasn't like some deep philosopher, just I would think about things and want to talk about them. And they told me that I thought too much. I was thinking too much. Just don't think so much. How many of you have run into that? Maybe I could say how many of you have not run into that, where people want to kind of box you in a bit and define you and have you conform to their hopes or their expectations or their fears about you, so as to keep you in a predictable place for them, for their comfort. Now, it just suddenly, literally, occurs to me that isn't that the way that politics works to a large degree, and of course religion. We're going to get into some of this tonight. But if you think about it, politicians play to the people in a predictable way. You'd think more people would recognize it, because a lot of work and a lot of study, if you will, over the years and decades has been paid for, has been dedicated to understanding how to manipulate the average person, certainly, how to control them, how to appeal to their desires and their wants and their fears, their hopes and their dreams and all that kind of stuff, and get from them what you want. That is, you want them to vote for you, want them to buy whatever you're selling, you want them to buy into you. So you're up somewhere on a platform begging or playing or plying for votes, for attention, for popularity, for success. Now, it also literally just popped into my mind because I was going to say this a bit for a week, and I'll say most of it, but a number of you know that I put up a site about this, I called it Playarium, because the idea of being able to breathe freely in many ways and benefit ourselves and the environment and each other would be, part of that play, so to speak, that aspiration. And I am going to report next week on the results of what really has been effectively a test marketing to see what happens with this particular product, because if it's so obviously it is an improbable, to put it mildly for some people, an improbable, if not impossible thing to affect the function of an engine and how well it burns fuel, etc., by shining the image you would download from the computer on it. And I would absolutely have dismissed that as a possibility if I hadn't experienced it with somebody else, witnessing it. But I know that does not a scientific study make, and nor is it make something conclusive. So I put up a site, and some blogs about the product and how you could buy it and what it supposedly does, and the results I got for whatever reasons. Now, I didn't figure that being skeptical would help me to get a real positive result. And I didn't also think, and I don't also think, that if people are simply assuming or believing that this will work, on the other hand, that belief alone will cause an inanimate object, complex one at that, an automobile, a truck, a boat, what have you, to suddenly perform better in a number of important ways. So we put this out and basically suspended the usual, when you have something you download from the internet, you really can't get a refund on it because you've got it. And we put the policy up, but I said, okay, we're going to do this for a certain number of orders. And then we're going to tell people, we have this very short questionnaire here. Did this work for you? Did it not work? You want a refund, or don't you know yet? And we give them a week's time to basically fill that out and get back to us so we can see, kind of like on Amazon, how you have people that say positive review, negative review, or whatever. And then we're going to post that. Whatever the outcome, doesn't matter to me. We'll put it up there, but we will see, based on that, if there is a preponderance of positive or negative responses. We'll let people respond to the responses, and we'll see if people, whatever those responses are, then are interested in this product. And then it'll be, sold, provided with no refunds, because we're going to give you the pros and the cons and just see how it plays out. And it's interesting because we have a few pros and cons already. I'm not going to say much more about it tonight, because I'm going to save it for next week, because I don't know what the final outcome will be. But a lot of people, have been on my case and, oh, you're being conned and this. I'm not telling you that I know anything for sure, and I'm willing to give you the chance. You're going to buy it, okay, you buy it, but I'm going to give you your money back if it doesn't work for you. It's that simple, up to a point. And then let's say if we still have this thing up because there's enough pros, I don't know yet, then it'll be just the way any other download. Hey, you download, you take your chances, but read the pros and cons and see what you feel. I just think that that's the fairest way to do something, rather than just say, hey, you got to get this because it's fantastic. My testimonial was honest and accurate and perplexing. So we'll see next week. We'll see where we are with this thing, because I think it's interesting in that way. So time to start thinking again. That's something to think about. What do I do if it's what if it's kind of even-handed or predominantly pro, predominantly not? Well, okay. So we're going to have our friend Derek join us here, and I'm going to see if I can bring him into the. I'm going to ask him to unmute here. Unmute. Yeah, please do.
Hi, Michael.
Hey, that's Derek. There you are. Just like in real life,
All
right?
right.
Good. How are you?
In the
So,
flesh.
yeah, good. So this is my friend Derek Lee. We've met in person and we've interacted in monthly meetings online, and we're both musicians. We have a few things in common. Yeah. So I wanted to bring Derek on, as I've brought Melissa on, and Francisco, and we're have people on that I have some familiarity with. I don't object to bringing on people I don't know, providing we we have some guarantees that they're not going to just go flying off the handle. Hey, I know he'll fly off the handle, so it's okay with me. So
I'll try not to do that today.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome to planet Earth. And you have to get a lot of handles to fly off of these days. So what we're going to do here is just have a conversation, and I do invite you, the audience, for this live broadcast, to join us, to come in and certainly ask Derek or comment to him on his points of view, and if you want, and have the exchange. And what we'll start with is the kind of a basic thing about, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you like to do, and all the usual stuff. And I'll just listen until I get a chance, and I'll interrupt you with something else.
All right. It's my pleasure to. I live in Tempe, Arizona, and I'll just give you a brief history if that's cool with you. Basically, in the 80s, around 86, 87, I was dabbling in metaphysics, and my sister and I would go to these metaphysical meetings, and I would go to the metaphysical bookstore and buy all the latest books, Richard Bach and Robert Reed and all these metaphysical books. And in the video section, they had a video rental section where you could rent certain, channelers and so on and so forth. And there was a video entitled Pleiadian Beam Ship, or Beam Ships of the Pleiades, one of the two. And I was intrigued. I never seen it before. I took it home and I watched it. There was very little English. It was mostly in German, but there was some English commentary. But even if there was, I wouldn't have listened to a word of it because I was just so mesmerized and intrigued by the UFOs. One that disappeared and came right back into the film, 8mm films. And these were all taken in the 70s. So I was just absolutely mesmerized. I must have been there twice. My third time to go rent the video. It was at Jan Ross Books in Phoenix, Arizona. I asked Jan, I said, hey, what happened to that Billy Meier video you had there? I rented it a couple of times. Did someone rent it? And she said, oh, no, we took it off the shelf because he was debunked for making models. And I thought to myself, gosh, they're going to debunk this guy and not even give you a long description or have any kind of proof. They just took it off the shelf, and I never saw anything again in any but metaphysical bookstore or movie store, rental store. I never saw it again until 2009. I was having a really hard time with my life. I didn't know who, I knew who I was to a certain extent, but I still had mainstream, beliefs. I didn't really know what was up or down. And I really was kind of having a semi-nervous breakdown at some point. And I went on the internet looking for UFOs because for some reason I always had that video in the back of my mind that there was some kind of truth there. And then lo and behold, I found Billy Meier again, and I was surprised to see there was a lot of information, uh, and more information than I ever thought was available back in the 80s. Um, so that's pretty much a brief history of how I came into the information from the Billy Meier material, and the rest is history.
Well,
It pretty much changed my life overnight.
oh, yeah. Well, let's speak about that's the introduction. That's how you came to this. What happened after that? Were you
Well,
find more videos, books, people, or was there a lapse in time? What was the process after that?
you know, after I found this material, I was reading for like 4 months straight, every single minute of the day. At the time, I was living in a condo, recording an album with a producer, and I didn't have to work for a long time. So I took the opportunity and read and read and read just mountains of material. And I realized that by reading this material, I realized that I was not the person that I wanted to be. I realized that I was lied to for a very long time. I realized that I had beliefs that were completely false, unsubstantiated. And I realized, as I looked around, that the world lives this way. And I felt like I was just waking up out of a dream. And I realized that, I still had some delusional thinking that I know now that came from the belief in the religious residue. Even if you're a metaphysically minded person, most people accept the whole God concept and so on. And so I was really coming to a lot of confrontation within myself in that regard, and it was really, really difficult, but at the same time extremely liberating, because I was finding a freedom that was within me that was not possible to gain through a belief system of any kind uh, that's available in our society.
What were you reading at the time that triggered that? What was it that you were reading?
I believe I was reading Contact 10, the
Right.
introduction to the spiritual teaching. I had a lot of feelings, sensitive feelings, fine sensitive feelings, if you will. And I really had some major, major realizations about life, about who we are and what our purpose is. And I realized that the powers that be that are around us don't want us to know these things, don't want us to share these things, don't want us to utilize these things to make our lives what we want. I realized that we were manipulated in directions, as you were saying earlier, to put us in a predictable place, in a comfort zone, whereas they have control over what we are, what we strive for, and so on, who we
Ah,
are.
well, so people will understand who might not know anything about this. Pardon me. A contact 10 refers to the 10th conversation in what is the official contacts from 1975, January 28, 1975 on, between Billy Meier and the alleged extraterrestrial woman, Semyaze. And this was, as you also said, introduction to the spiritual teaching, now known as the creation energy teaching. And in there, she waxes quite poetically about the spirit. It never sleeps, and all these. It's just a beautiful, beautiful tract of information, and they speak with each other, but she just lays out this whole thing. And the fact that you are someone who, from that, began to liberate yourself, as you say, from the imprisonment of forced beliefs and societal conditioning as reflected in beliefs and religions and cults and what have you. That I'm glad to say that there are other people that have done this, that we know have one way or another, whether it's with that contact or something else, find the Meier material, they come into it, and then they start to have this awakening, the realizations and epiphanies. And then it's time to start thinking again, not just, running yourself in a circle, but thinking, and to take, you're alluding to this, taking back control over your life, and you're striving. What you strive for, as Billy has said, the human being is the smith, the one who forges their own destiny. That's not what religions or politics encourages human beings to do, and that has been a form of enslavement for thousands of years. So while we speak about that, what do you think the dangers then are of succumbing to belief? What's your own experience? I know you said a little here, but anything else about?
Well, for me personally, and knowing that the teaching of creation energy, as you're saying, is a belief-free teaching, it was completely different approach than I've ever seen anywhere in the world. And as a kid, I used to wait. Okay. I'd say, I don't understand this. I'll wait for the truth to come out someday. Well, the dangers, personally, I was affected by delusional thinking. And when I mean delusional thinking, I mean, as lighthearted as I could say it, I still, I had to work out these things in my head these false beliefs about myself. This is the most difficult part for me and for other people. This is the part that I wanted to understand. I wanted to understand what understanding is versus belief, what knowledge is versus belief. I just, was looking around and being aware of the world and how everything is functioning. And you see the way the world is going. You see the monumental, just negative things going on around the world. And if you look to the root of it, you see that it's coming from beliefs. It's coming from people's opinions. It's coming from partisan thinking that is judgmental from the premise of personal beliefs and thoughts and feelings rather than facts that correspond with reality and what actually occurs. And so the dangers to me that I realized, these things I wasn't even aware of. These dangers existed in me, in my brain, in my thinking. I had a lot of epiphanies and wake-up calls, if you will. And the biggest wake-up call I had to come to realize was that truth is given in reality. Like I have posted on my walls some of these things. Truth is evidential. It occurs. Whereas belief, there's nothing that can substantiate it. It rarely can correspond to reality. And I realized that my whole world was collapsing. My world of belief was collapsing. And I realized that it was superfluous. It was absolutely unneeded. It was actually destructive. And that's what I'd like to, further, get into, because there's things going on in the brain neurologically that are devastating to the human being's brain and being physiologically, even to the heart. I'd like to confront these things and just express a little bit that, these religions promote this, but scientifically and neurologically, it's harmful. So what are we supposed to do?
Well, let me ask you on that. At the time that you're let's say, encountering this new information and you're beginning your own transformation, did you have the, let's say, in the people around you, your associates, friends, what have you, would you say, were they people who were independent thinkers, believers, a mixture of different things? What was that like then in terms of?
Well, it was hard for me to find an independent thinker anywhere. I realized that while most of my friends were, and my people that I associated with were mostly like everyone else, right wing or left wing. Most of them were had a basis of belief in whatever religion they believed, attested to, or whatnot. And I when I started reading some material that was really deep, like some excerpts from one of Billy's books called God, Delusion, and Insanity, that particular excerpt was just absolutely mind-wrenching. It just opened me up to realize that, you can find the truth. Anyone can, if they think and start not depending on anything but their observations. They're thinking rather than fantasizing, with our beliefs and so on, and it's really hard to touch on sometimes, to explain when this whole concept. But basically, in the teaching, or in this material, it was explaining a lot about the conditioning of belief and faith, and how it actually took the upper hand of the thinking of the human being's consciousness, whereas the temporal lobe is deemed inoperable in the brain, which is the part where we decide in our brain, and our memory and our learning. Inoperable. You mean it's not being used at all? No. What is it, mush? I mean, yeah. Did I depend on outside? I really never kind of did, but I had, the metaphysical beliefs and so on. Even the beliefs I had to work those out. They did not correspond with reality, with logic, and you think of the old saying, the anti-logo, the old was it not Greek? Logo means logic. Anti-logic, which is, I started realizing that all of the religions are promoted. The governments and the religions are parallel with this whole thing. What is it that they want from us? Well, they want your brain. They want you to believe so that they can sustain their way of life while the earth is sadly being overpopulated to the point of, the complete destruction of our planet.
Mm-hmm. Well, with
I can go on and on about this, but
no, it's fine.
I have to keep me on point, Michael.
There, when you talked about, the religions, the politics and religion want your brain, they want control. Obviously, there are people that only are feeling like they're alive and have meaning in their lives if they exert control over others, if they can amass excessive amounts of things, mainly that represent money in some form or other. They can never utilize themselves fully in their own lifetime. So we have all these strange things, and there are beliefs obviously inherent in all these different areas of our lives. And in terms of the way belief about scarcity, not enough, the fear connected underneath all of this is a fear of lack of survival in some sense. So with religion, people are going to they're looking for an assurance that they will be protected and survive from some sky daddy or what have you who's going to not dip them in lead after they're dead and give them a hard time. So here we are embarking on the age of what? Truth and knowledge. So how's that playing out in your life now? Is it pretty much the same, just an advanced version? Are there any surprises, unexpected things?
Well, I've unexpected things. That's a good one. I've learned so much from the information that I'm constantly learning so much. Lately, I've been really thinking and working out this whole opinion-based things, opinions that are based on knowledge or opinions based on a personal belief, your thoughts or feelings. They're very, very vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing to see how unaware and unconscious people are with their opinions, and how quickly they draw conclusions, conclusive beliefs, I should say, not really conclusive answers, because that's one of the things I've been learning a lot, to work out my opinions based on facts and based on reality, things that can actually occur. But surprises, there's always another surprise around the corner. I mean, the fact that the might of our thoughts, the book The Might of the Thoughts was one of the greatest teachings I've ever come across, as far as the science of our thinking and our consciousness. I used to play with those things in the 80s, like let's manifest things out of our thinking and see how quickly they come to be, and so on. And we used to play with that in the metaphysical days. But it's really not a game. I'm still doing it every single day, and people are unaware of the fact that they too are using the might of their thoughts every second of the day, whether it's negative experiences or positive ones.
Exactly. This is, when people realize they're doing this unconsciously. We've got a caller here who I think wants to chat with you here. Can we bring Andrea on the line? I think she's in the chat. Let's find out. Yes to our guest speaker. Are you there?
Oh,
Let's hear you again. We're just getting to hear your dulcet.
hello. Hi, Derek and Michael. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Derek, how are you? Yes.
Oh, okay, great. There's just a little bit of a delay, maybe. First off, I'm very much enjoying this conversation between you and Derek. Hi, Derek.
Hi, Andrea.
And I was hoping you might be able to tell the audience who are listening tonight, and also those who are watching tonight, a little bit more about the image on your t-shirt and what that represents.
Oh, yeah, this is the overpopulation spiritual symbol, coming from a series of symbols that Billy Meier has put together in a book, and supposedly there's 600 of them printed in print already. But this one specifically is about stopping overpopulation. Overpopulation, according to the material, and according to my opinion based on facts, is the base problem of our Earth. It's the biggest problem that we're facing. It's the most, I would have to say, downplayed concept, the most feared for media, because they never want to post anything about it. And speaking of unconscious things, people aren't even consciously aware of the fact that overpopulation is the root problem that is stems from, that is the stem from, for all the problems of the earth. We can't sustain the people. We have to stop the birthing clock for a certain amount of time. According to the information, birth stop is probably the only way that we can solve this problem with overpopulation. It's an elephant in the room for the most part. I find it difficult to even, talk about it, because it is probably one of the most boring subjects for anyone to want to listen to, but it is the root problem of all of the problems that we're facing in every country of the world. The fact that we have people that are having, on welfare, having 6 and 10 children, and viewing it as, they're almost proud of it, is really, really disheartening to me. It really is sad. It makes me sad for our planet, because our planet is a being. It is an alive life form, a satellite that we live on, and we are absolutely devastating it with overpopulation. And apparently,
Derek, I'll throw in a thought, because a lot of times when people who are aware of overpopulation as a real problem, it's harder to communicate it to people, because, no pun intended, it's not sexy. Sexy getting things overpopulated. But what happens, people fail to understand that there is finite space, finite ability of the planetary organism to produce sufficient clean, healthful nutrition, to process wastes of various forms. And that, I've used the analogy of pretend this is an aquarium or a terrarium, finite space. Your environment, if you keep putting living organisms into it, they will wither, fade, die, pollute. And at the heart of this problem, the manifestations that people don't recognize, they are the strife and the wars and the conflicts and the climbing over each other for ever dwindling resources. And so it just takes on a life-killing life of its own and dominates everything. You can take, as you said, and I'm sure Andrea knows this, take any earthly problems and start going to the root of cause, effect, and you find, well, this thing that imbalances our life on this world affects everybody sooner or later. So people don't think that they're bringing, well, they don't think when and while they're bringing in new life forms into the world, what they're going to subject them to. And it's pretty daunting and pretty scary.
it certainly is.
So,
And that's one of the things, when I was first finding the teaching, when I saw what they were saying about a 7-year birth stop, I thought that was brilliant. I thought it was genius. And I still think it is. And I have so much hope that one country, starting with somewhere and someone, will actually implement that answer to that problem.
Well, a very important point, because a lot of times when people hear overpopulation and birth stoppages and things, they translate that into the propaganda that the people who are for the control of births and overpopulation want to kill people off, which is, no, it's actually by not finding the humane way, we are killing ourselves off slowly, surely, sometimes rapidly. So the birth stoppage allows the attrition. Those who are older, as they get older and they pass away, then the population starts getting a little space to breathe and grow. lifespans can increase, as they will, but just to increase lifespans when you have too many people is further recipe for disaster. So it's a very tricky thing. It's so obvious. And frankly, the first times even I came in contact with it in the Meier material, I wasn't that interested. I really wasn't. I thought, I want to know more about this and the history and this and that and all the travel to the stars. But it's so foundational, literally foundational to our existence. And I would say that from what we know from the prophecies and what we can see manifesting now on a daily basis with the irrational violence, people aren't listening. They probably, for the most part, won't listen for a long time until the pain is great enough. It will then be the survivors, however many or few, will reconsider senseless overbreeding. They'll want to repopulate the world and certainly take another hard look at religions, cults, sects, politics, all of these polarizing, delusional violence and bloodletting forms of primitive, outdated, non-serviceable human behavior. So that being said, people
I couldn't have said it anywhere near that well.
Well, I'll try again.
One of the things about you, you just really hit the nail on the head a lot.
Well, you're feeding me all these pieces to the, to knock in with.
Oh, yeah, blame it on me.
So,
No, but really, it is an important subject to me also, and I really do owe a responsibility to the world and myself to honor that, the fact that I'm not going to create any more life, and I'm going to advocate for others to not also, in the most positively neutral way I can.
yeah.
And speaking of positive neutral, that's a good conversation piece right there.
Well, neutral positive and positive neutral. Let's talk just a little bit more about how that is, because you mentioned beliefs and opinions that are based not on facts, and even fact-based opinions are subject to change as new facts are present. The difference being, I think, that when we, like last week, we posted one of the things from Billy about seeing things impersonally, so important. Whatever
Yes.
occurrences, events, things that are happening, do not personalize them, but see them for what they are. Now, certainly one of the foundational principles in the teaching we certainly have, number one probably is taking 100% self-responsibility for everything in our own lives. But Meier emphasizes that we must learn to see things as they are. We have been conditioned through all forms in society, education, if you want to call it, to form quick opinions, to have convictions and hold tightly and fight for and die for things, because it's been engineered that way to serve other people or a group that we may be part of, whether we know it or not. That can be political, religious, familial. So when we learn to see things as they are, that's the neutrality right there. It's not the only neutrality, but that's neutrality. What
Absolutely.
is not, do I like it? Do I not like it? Is it pretty? Subjective, things that are not dealing with a level of objective reality. Meier speaks about affective love and effective love. We can have great affection or antipathy towards people, but where is the effective love? We don't have to like people in order to truly love them. Okay, coming back. So
yes.
we see things as they are, then we can choose through, you talked about the might of the thoughts and the responsibility that should be a conscious one that goes along with that, because we're doing it 24/7, mainly unconsciously all the time. So if we see something the way it is, we then can choose whether or not we, let's say, hold thought and take action to perpetuate this, to change it, to stop it, to do nothing about it whatsoever. We have those choices in our thoughts, so that gives us internal freedom too. We eliminate bias. That's one of the ways I look at the neutral positive thing. Why don't you weigh in on this? What is it to you?
This is great. This is great. I'm loving this, because you mentioned effective love. There's also effective truth, effective knowledge, effective truth based on knowledge. The neutrality, you explained it really well, because as we're going through our daily routines every day, let's say someone does something normally that would really piss me off or something. Well, there's 3 ways you can handle it. You can handle it by thinking positively about it, thinking negatively about it, or being neutral. So what I mean when I say neutral, well, without a reaction, we're going to go into my brain. I'm going to use my thinking to not react, to see the situation as it is unfolding, and to not formulate an opinion until I can understand the facts. And not even then, but it's a stance of a neutrality, of not making that positive choice or negative choice. It's kind of in between. The way you explained it was really well. It's one of the most seemingly complex concepts that I've learned in the material, because, there's many conceptions of positive and negative, positive teachings and negative things. Like, with like Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, all the positive thinking books that are out there. Well, they're flawed, because they're still polarizing the thinking, and the basis of the thinking that is, they're using their belief, their opinions based on beliefs. And to stop doing that is to become aware of your thinking and to neutralize it. And there's ways to do this also. There's ways, I could think about the current wind on my face and look at the sun, and I'll say to myself, it's sunny and I feel this soft wind on my face, instead of reacting in a polarizing way, to be angry, or to, and then you're going to go into emotions and feelings. The human being, the dimensions, as Samyasi says, are endless. There's so many dimensions to these things that we're learning, which makes it seem like it's really, there are great difficulties, but it's baby steps. These things, with the teaching and with the information and the books and the material, one really has to give themselves the time to understand these things and test them, and use them on a daily basis.
Well, yes. And as you're saying this, pops into my mind, we call this show the UFO Report, of course. UFO. The preponderance of attention, and of course the Meier case has the best evidence, but the preponderance is the eye candy, that which glitters, and the phenomenon now is the big word. But nobody in all of ufology, or in anything that comes up, coming from any angle or study that comes upon the Meier material, seems to ever ask the important question: if this is true, what's the reason for it? And so I come right back to our conversation. I've decided, I know a lot to investigate things pertaining to UFOs and proving things and arguing with people and fighting, blah, blah, blah. The time now, it's much more important that we recognize the reason is for us to help us assure our own future survival. And the mechanism, the methodology, is to come to the core of the material. They came here not to provide careers for UFO speakers or for us to chase lights in the sky, but to ask, well, what's the reason for this? And so there is the gem. Semyazi starts off contact 10. We started discussing a little while ago, the introduction to spiritual teaching, creation, energy teaching. And what does it mean? It means we come to look at the most important existential questions in all of human life. Billy's book that has the rather, I've got so many books here, the complex title about the of creation. The thing that boggled my mind since I was a kid, where did existence come from? What came before the beginning? How far does space go? What's outside of it? How can there be nothing? And Meier actually has a book that comes as close as can be done. Even he knows the limitations of explaining how existence popped into being. Before I had met Billy in this material, I had, my own once upon no time and all suddenly without warning, love became itself with a pucker and a pop. It looked around, and it was like this whole thing. It looked around and saw the empty of emptiness and decided to fill the whole non-place up with stuff. But first, it had to let there be light. And so, and it was my version of the creation story, which is a primitive version, but it's what else is going on? How can this be? So here we sit speaking about this foundational material, little pieces at a time, which are not spoken of effectively anywhere else. Wherever it's spoken of, it's based on beliefs and dogmas and goofy stuff from, various religious things that can't answer it. And it's punitive and sectarian and hierarchical. This is an open teaching with belief-free, non-religious, for people to get in and grapple and be exposed to struggling with these questions, because these are the evolutive and evolutionary questions for the consciousness. Billy said the meaning of life is the evolution of consciousness. So we've got a couple minutes left at least. So let's see if I'm going to jump for a minute just so we can do a little something here. We have, let's see, you can tell me if you can see this. I don't know if you can see this yet. It's the FIGU indexer presentation that you sent to me, and I don't know if it's visible to you or to the public, but hopefully people can see it. And it's a whole bunch of really good information and quotes from Billy from when he was a young boy, 14 years old, and all and up, and how belief. You got into some of this, how this affects the brain, the temporal lobes, and how also it causes mental, psychological, physiological imbalances, diseases. My goodness, so many things. And you never, ever are going to get this kind of material, most of it freely available. I mean, you guys are putting it out there, and the people in Switzerland are putting it out there. You're never going to get this quality of material that you can start to dig into for free. And then you're not told that you have to accept it or believe it. You're invited to think. You're invited to get start your thinking again so we can become truly self-responsible for our own lives. This, I think Derek, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but there is something that becomes available to people as a byproduct of immersing, partaking of this study, that starts filling even places that we didn't know were empty or the lights were dimmed or what have you. And it awakens things and it draws forward, because our awareness of the external as well as the internal is enhanced, and it's endless, compounding. It's like compound interest on joy.
All encompassing for sure.
All encompassing. So do you have any like final thoughts or words here for a little bit?
Sure. I just want to say a couple more things regarding what you're saying about the teaching, because the base of the knowledge, the extraterrestrials that came here, they and Billy have tried really hard to get us to understand the teaching, the belief-free teaching. And that's one thing that no one's ever gotten. If you look at this painting I did, Billy, there's three symbols here. One of them is the truth symbol. This one here is the creation energy symbol. And this one here is the symbol for life that's upright, like a peace sign upright. And it's a three-part teaching. And the goblet of the truth here has the complete teaching from all of the prophets in the direct succession from Enoch to Billy Meier. And this book, by the way, is free, a free PDF that's got an all-encompassing teaching.
Yep.
That's just phenomenal. So I just want to throw that out there so that people can see the extent of the teaching is not just one teaching, but it's a three-part teaching that covers the truth according to reality, that covers the creation energy, which is science, and also the life, which is the part of the spiritual teaching that we as human beings are in need of learning to be together. And all these things, these are the things that are going to bring us to the heights in our lives that will actually let us evolve our consciousness and find the freedom that we deserve as beings from the creation energy.
Absolutely. It's a treasure waiting to be discovered endlessly in each lifetime. The same books, these books will be read and reread by others in the future, by future personalities of all of us. We will have to discover the teaching again in each life. We'll learn things, but from a slightly more evolved consciousness each time. And Meier teaches about the reality, the facts in the book on rebirth, everything, the facts about living, dying, death, rebirth, and demystifies and takes the shrouded in fear and desperate, and punishment and the whole thing, because it's a reality of a life. Life is not set up to punish. And when we discover how the laws of creation work and what they are, well, then we are partaking. The universe doesn't come down and kiss you on the forehead and bestow anything. It simply is there to partake of. So like a frequency on a radio or a TV or anything else, or in an organ, we tune to these frequencies, we start to partake and participate and contribute and study and work. And then we find that there's an abundance at every level of it. So I want to thank you for joining tonight, and Andrea for calling in.
Thank you. And thank you, Andrea, for your question.
Yeah, get things, do a little probing here, and we start to find other things and aspects of that teaching and how we as individuals are also understanding it. So until next time, next week, hopefully so, everybody will join us. And I thank Derek Lee for his wonderful participation and contributions, and Andrea, and yes, Salome,
Salome.
Be safe and serene, Salome, and enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Thank you.
It is the time of avaricious men, lost in their lust for power, baby. Here they come again. They wave the flag and smile to distract us from the truth. Well, we pay like hell for the lies they tell. The thieves are on the loose. Don't go along with that. Land of the free. That's the way we give away our liberty. They can't explain how things have gotten bad. Drugs and crime are on the climb, so they hide behind the flag. They'll trash the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.